Hey everyone. So we are going to continue with solving systems of equations, and we're going to continue today solving with substitution. So we've seen this in class, but I want to kind of review it. So I'm going to go over 3 different problems with you because pretty much what we're going to be doing is substituting in a value so that we can solve, because it's really hard to solve this if we don't know x and we don't know y. So we're going to want to find at least one of these variables first. So I'm going to solve, let's start figuring this out. All right, so we have 2 equations, and I see that one is already has a variable alone. So this is what you're going to want to look for, is when one of the variables is alone, whether it's x or whether it's y. Here, you're going to see, let's see, this is alone. So I'm going to want to use this guy right here. And I'm going to take this, and I'm going to substitute, which is where the substitution comes in. So I'm going to take, if y equals 7x, every time I see a y, I'm going to put 7x. So I'm going to put this right here. Okay, so I'm substituting the value of y and putting 7x. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to rewrite the first equation. And when I see y, I'm going to put in parentheses 7x. And I'm going to rewrite the rest of the equation. So when I see y, I know that y equals 7x. I'm going to substitute it because this is easier to solve now because we have just one variable, and now we're just going to solve. So I'm going to bring down my negative 5x. I'm going to do 2 times 7, which is 14, x equals 9. Whoa. I'm going to continue to solve. If you see, this is on the left side of the equal sign, so I can just combine like terms. So I'm going to do 14 minus 5, which gives me 9x. I'm going to bring down my 9. And then I'm going to divide 9 on both sides. If I can, I'm going to divide 9 on both sides. And I'm going to get x equals 1. Right, so we have the value of x. So now, if you can see here, it's looking for both the value of x and the value of y. So I'm actually going to go back to this first equation, and I'm going to input my new value. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to put y equals 7. And then instead of x, I'm going to put 1. Okay? So I know 7 times 1, I know y is going to equal 7. Okay? So first, you're going to want to substitute to find one of the variables. Usually it's easier if one of them is already alone to substitute in. And then you find that second variable. So for that, x is 1 and y is 7. Okay? So I'm going to show you another example where it's actually flipped, where you have to input the other variable. All right, so for this one here, we have 2x plus 7y equals 3, and x equals negative 4y. So if you see, you try to find the one that's alone, you see the x is alone, so we're going to substitute this guy. And every time we see x, we're going to put a negative 4y. So this is going to go in here. So let's start. All right, so we have 2, and I have an x there, so I'm going to put, instead of x, I'm going to put negative 4y. Input the rest of the equation, and I'm going to start to solve. So I'm going to do 2 times negative 4, which is negative 8y, plus 7y. I'm just going to bring down the rest of the equation. And I'm going to continue to simplify. So negative 8y plus 7y just gives me negative 1y, or negative y, same thing, equals 3. So now in order to solve this, because your y is not alone, what's really here is that negative 1, so you're going to want to divide by negative 1 on both sides. Okay, so y equals negative 3. Okay, so we found one of the variables. I'm going to go back to this original equation, and I'm going to try to find my x value. So I'm going to write in x equals negative 4 times negative 3. Okay, so I'm plugging into this equation. This one right here. Plugging into this guy right here. So I have x equals negative 4 and the value I just found, which is negative 3. and I'm going to solve. So x equals -4 times -3 is 12. Okay, so my y equals -3 and my x equals 12. Okay, so I'm actually going to show you one more, if it lets me. There it is. I just wanted to show you something that may come up. It's a little different. So usually we've been substituting in just one term, and if you can see here, it actually has two terms. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. All right, let's go over here, and I'm going to input this into, every time I see x, I'm going to input this substitution. Sorry, my computer is acting up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to put 13, and when I see x, I'm going to input this whole guy because x equals this whole thing. So I'm going to put y plus 6 and 6y equals 22. Okay, so the only difference here is you have an extra step because we got to distribute here. I'm going to do 13 times y, which is 13y. 13 times 6, when you put that in the calculator, it becomes plus 78. And I'm going to bring down the rest of the equation. Okay. And then we're going to continue to simplify. If you see, I have here the two y values that I need to combine. And they're on the same side of the equal sign. So we're just combining. So we're just doing 13 minus 6. The only time we do inverse operations is when we go across this equal sign. So 13 minus 6 gives you 7y. I'm going to bring down the rest of the equation. And then going to subtract 78 on both sides. Okay. I'm left with 7y equals 22 minus 78 will give you a negative 56 when you put that in the calculator. Next step is you're going to divide by 7 on both sides. 7 equals negative 8. So I just want to show you that step just in case you're dividing, because these are attached by multiplication. Okay, so we know that y equals negative 8. So what I'm going to do is I have to go find my x value. So I'm going to plug it into the equation that I substituted, this guy here, because I think it's the easiest. So we have x equals, for y, I'm just going to put negative 8 plus 6. And if we do negative 8 plus 6, x will equal negative 2. Okay, so here are your two differences. So you will have one more question that looks just like this. So take whether this was y equals x plus 6, you would then plug it into the y value. So just take the whole term and make sure you plug it in, and then you're going to have to distribute. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can message us.